Hi, everyone. It's Thursday, August 14th, 2025. It is 5:07 p.m. We're here at the Austin Transit Partnership Office Boardroom at 203 Colorado Street, Austin, Texas, 78701. I'm first quickly going to take roll. Is Chair Azar here? He's going to join us virtually. Said he might be a few minutes late. He is not present at this time. I'm Vice Chair Summers. I am here. Secretary Garza
Here.
is here. Thank you. Member Brooks. Thank you. Member Crossley
Here.
is here. Do we have sound on them? I can see that they're here. Member Gorse.
Here.
I see him as well. I can see them saying here, but we can't hear them yet. We're going to work on that. Member Hendricks, I believe, is not here. He let us know that he would not be in attendance. Let's see, pause if we can get y'all on sound here.
I unmuted myself. I don't know if it's something on your end, if you can't hear me.
We can hear you, like those of us on the Zoom, but they apparently can't hear us in the room.
Anyone, I'll just call Miss Meyer, who Member Meyer is in the, can we hear you?
Can you hear me?
Nope. We can see
I'm
you
here.
talking. We can't hear you talking. I'm going to also, Member Reed is here with us, I think. Hello. Thank you. And Member Barry, I see you.
Hi.
I can't hear you yet. We're working on that piece.
I'm here.
And Member Alhaber is not here right now. But we do have quorum. Anyone say something, virtual attendees?
Hello.
Something.
Hola.
Do we keep talking?
Oh,
Hello? How about now?
thank you. I think we have our virtual attendees. We can hear you. So that is excellent.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent.
We can. Yes, we're a go. Okay. So I did get us through our attendance roster and we do have quorum. So we'll move to item 2, which is our land acknowledgement. Miss Berry, were you prepared to lead us through that?
Yes, I am. Good thing
Thank
we
you.
got the audio working.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect. To ground yourself before starting this meeting, it's important to talk about the history of this region. Long before it came to be known as Waterloo or Austin, this region has drawn people here for thousands of years, in part because of our waterways and the wealth of natural resources. This region has been home to the Tonkawa, the Coahuilteca, as well as the Comanche, Lipan Apache, Sana, Humanos, and many others I may not have named who were also caretakers of this land. I highlight this history because Native and Indigenous peoples are routinely erased from the conversation, referred to as having disappeared or having been conquered. Native and Indigenous peoples are still here and present in what we now call Austin. The pursuit of white land ownership, profit, and so-called progress has harmed Black, Indigenous, and people of color in this city. The effects of the legacy of settler colonialism, the theft of land, slavery, and genocide are still felt and present with us today. It's vital to keep this history in mind as you do this important work and to make a commitment to stop perpetuating the cycle of violence against Black, Indigenous, and people of color.
Thank you so much for that. That brings us to item 4, which is approval of the previous July 10th, 2025 CAC meeting minutes. Members, this was pre-circulated via email. So if you need a second to review, you can, but I'm ready to entertain a motion regarding those minutes.
I'll motion to approve.
Thank you, Secretary Garza. I will second that. Are there any discussion or amendments to the minutes? Seeing none? Oh,
Oh, sorry, I have a quick question. When were they sent?
Friday?
Can't find them. But that's,
Would
Yeah,
it
I
be
can't-
possible for one of our staff to quickly share that out? Yeah, it goes to the BC email, the City of Austin email.
yeah, I'm checking that one. I didn't see it.
Okay.
That's fine. I can abstain.
Okay, Sophia is forwarding that again so that everyone can take a look at that. Let's see if we can take a vote on that and get that item handled. All those in favor of approving the minutes as circulated, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Okay. That was an aye from Mr. Gorse. Ms. Meyer, did you vote on that one?
Not yet. I'm gonna abstain. I was not able to be at the committee meeting last time.
Sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that does pass. We have 2, any of those abstaining, I think, are 2, Ms. Meyer and Ms. Berry, with none opposed. All right, so we do pass those minutes. In general, I will say you don't necessarily have to have attended the prior meeting to vote on the minutes, but I do, just as a point of order, but just to let everyone know, but if you desire to, as long as we have enough people voting, then we are okay. All right, so that takes us to, I skipped number 3, didn't I? Public comment. I totally did. Do we have any from the public signed up to speak to us today? All right, we will move forward then. We are going to, members, unless there is objection, we have had a request from staff who are going to present the NEPA update to go first so that they can go to other commitments that they have. And so unless there's an objection from someone, I will take, that's going to be item 6A under discussion items. I'm going to suggest that we take that first to assist our staff. Okay, great. I'm seeing no objections to that. Then I'll go ahead and call up our staff for that presentation. Oh. They can't see. Okay, sure.
You ready for us?
Yes.
I can, and we can introduce ourselves. We do have a few slides, but my name's Jennifer Pine with Austin Transit Partnership, Executive Vice President for Planning, Community and Federal Programs.
Good evening. I'm Darren Lozano, also with Austin Transit Partnership, Senior Vice President of Environment and Project Development.
Thanks. So we're just going to give a brief update on the things ongoing with the NEPA process. And I'll start with, we sort of have our overall schedule slide. I'll wait till everybody can see it. All right, I think we got it. If everybody can see this, this is our overall timeline for delivering the light rail capital project. Right now, we're in the project development phase, which we've been in for a little bit and expecting to conclude in 2026. So at this point, we are developing preliminary design materials. We are doing an environmental review, which we'll be talking about in particular today, as well as planning our next steps for delivery of the project. We could go to the next slide. I don't think I. So this is a zoom in on the primary schedule points for our NEPA process, which is required because we are pursuing federal grant funds for this project. This is just one of multiple requirements to complete an environmental review in compliance with the National Environmental Policy Act, or I'll keep referring to that as NEPA. So it starts with a notice of intent, which is a notice in the Federal Register that kicks off our process, which we start out with scoping, which is a public outreach moment to share the project that we're about to review and receive input from the public on the scope of the analysis, key issues that should be sure to included, and other comments. From there, we develop a draft environmental impact statement, which is based on a comprehensive analysis of all of the potential impacts on the natural and human environment that the construction and operation of this project may cause. That draft environmental impact statement was released in January of this year and was out there for a 60-day public comment period, during which we hosted a series of public meetings and received comments in a variety of ways. So that review period officially ended in mid-March. And since then, we've been responding to comments. And the next step is really to prepare a final environmental impact statement and a record of decision, which would conclude the NEPA process itself. And we are targeting that work by the end of the year. We work very closely with the Federal Transit Administration on all this work. Really, it's their process and their document at the end of the day. So I'm going to turn it over to Darren to take it from here.
Sure. Thanks, Jen. So if you recall, the last time we presented to this group was January. And at that time, as Jen mentioned, we were just releasing the draft environmental impact statement, going out to the public, soliciting comments. And so now, if we go to the next slide, we wanted to dig a little deeper into, well, what have we been doing the last couple of years in detail related to NEPA? This is definitely a marathon. It's not a sprint. So as you can see, back in fall of October 2023, we've been in close collaboration amongst ATP, the city of Austin, and also with CAP Metro. And what that means for NEPA is, as we develop technical reports to support the environmental impact statement, we worked amongst each other to develop those documents themselves. And so as those were being developed, as Jen noted, in January is when we put the document out to the public, or scoping started last year, to start to get input on what the environmental impact statement should include. So as we look to summer of last year, we had actually put together an initial draft environmental impact statement that, working with, again, our partners, we were able to put together to provide to FTA before it was ultimately released in January of this year. And so now, as you can see, we're kind of nearing the tail end of the NEPA process, whereas in fact, within the last month, we've actually developed kind of a preliminary draft final environmental impact statement that we've been working with the city and with CAP Metro to develop and get ready, as Jen mentioned, to become the final document as part of our FEIS record of decision later this year. And one thing to point out there is at the very end of the timeline here, you do see this January 19th, 2026 2-year timeframe. And that's something when we work with the Federal Transit Administration, there is a 2-year stipulation for NEPA. And so as you can see, we're in a position where we'll be able to finish within that 2-year timeframe at this point in time. Next slide, please, Giannis. Again, just wanted to report out all the outreach events that we did. I know we're 4 months, 5 months removed from our actual public outreach process. But just a reminder that we had 4 in-person public meetings in various locations throughout the corridor. We presented to all the boards and commissions with the city, including other community presentations at events as requested. And we also did a lot of at-stop outreach. So we had people in the field notifying the transit riders of the environmental impact statement out for review. And the bottom line there is, we engage with people at all these different venues, events, and we reached about 3,000 individuals throughout the Austin community within that 60-day timeframe to solicit input. And turning to the next slide, you can see really what are some of the themes that we heard. Some of them might not be surprising to everybody, but of the 2,500 individual comments were received, we started to see some recurring themes. And one of the top themes we got was a lot of support to actually extend to the airport. A reminder that, even though our project, the Austin Light Rail Phase 1 project right now ends at Yellow Jacket, we do have the airport extension as a priority extension. So the public really wanted to acknowledge that. We had various design options as part of the draft environmental impact statement, including, for examples, proposed station near Woolridge Square, elevated alignment along Riverside. And for all those design options that we recommended, the public was in line and had support for those design options. We also had some comments on the park and rides themselves, particularly at 38th Street and also at Altorf, which I'll show here at the next slide. And also we're doing some additional due diligence on South Congress because, there's a lot of interest in South Congress and how light rail is integrated in that location. We're doing some due diligence work and work on the comments we received related to the South Congress design. And then finally, it's widely acknowledged that light rail is going to be new to the community. And we want to make sure that there are seamless connections amongst transit riders currently, but also those bike and pedestrian connections along the entire alignment. So we really took those to heart as we incorporate those comments into our final environmental impact statement. And turning to the next slide. This is really how are we using the public input to inform the final environmental impact statement? And we did want to call out some examples here. Number one is we did acknowledge that we were able to reduce the property impacts along the light rail. And that was very important because in the draft environmental impact statement near the Montopolis station, we did have some initial residential impacts. But working with the community, looking at our design, we're actually to eliminate those residential impacts. And so now we have no residential impacts throughout the project alignment. When it comes to park and rides, we received a lot of comments on 38th Street. If we recall, to meet projected demand at 38th Street, we had proposed some type of parking structure at that location. But again, in listening to the community and looking at kind of the characteristics of the area, it seemed to make sense to go forward with a surface facility at 38th Street rather than structure. That's going in our new design plan set. And we also had comments about, how is the traffic going to work along and near the Altorf Park and Ride. And so we're currently evaluating and incorporating additional information into the final environmental impact statement related to those specifics around Altorf. Another idea or another thing that came out of the draft environmental impact statement is when we hear from certain partners and stakeholders, there were concerns about some of the impacts of the loading docks along Trinity Street, just north of the boathouse. And so we're actually able to shift that alignment to provide more room for those loading docks in that location. So that's one of those kind of site-specific modifications for the final environmental impact statement. And then we also, as part of the FEIS record of decision, we developed mitigation measures, and a lot of those were informed by members of the community. And we'll talk about that here in the upcoming slides. Giannis, next slide, please. We're down to our last couple of slides here, but we really wanted to touch on what mitigation is exactly, because I think everybody might have a different thought of how we talk about mitigation. But mitigation really is required by the Federal Transit Administration as we go through this process. And kind of going down the list here, the mitigation measures we document talk about how do we avoid impacts by either not taking actions or incorporating parts of an action, making sure to minimize the impact to the best of our ability, looking at rectifying any impacts through repair, rehabilitation, restoration. That's all part of the mitigation plan as well. As we look at the operation of the project, can we reduce or actually eliminate an impact over time? And also looking at compensating for impacts by either replacing whatever is impacted or looking at other resources and ways to improve what's potentially impacted by the project. And we wanted to show, as we go to the next slide, a little more detail and examples of what are some specific mitigation measures and commitments. And I do know there's a lot of text here, but I think these are very important to show kind of the wide range of what the mitigation listing is. And these are all documented in what's called a MMP, or a mitigation monitoring plan. And that'll be published as part of that FEIS record of decision. But as you can see, just kind of going down the line, we note in the MMP that a business assistance program will be developed as part of the project itself. Working in close coordination with emergency response services, because I think those were a lot of comments of what happens to potential impacts to emergency services. We'll look at our contractors to do work as well to support the MMP, and that includes developing a noise control plan. So we have identified locations in the EIS where there are potential noise impacts. So making sure that we monitor and not acknowledge those in the MMP. Of course, of importance to the community is bats. And so we have a mitigation measure related to that. And also just other federal regulations too.
Could you slow down for our interpreters? I'm sorry to
Oh,
interrupt.
sure.
Yeah.
I can do that. Bats is of importance. And then finally, there are, of course, other federal regulations that we do need to abide by. And so those are actually noted in the MMP. And one example here is working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers when it comes to any type of water impacts related to light rail. And I think our next slide is next steps.
So we've been giving you really a report while work is in progress. The final EIS and the record of decision documents, they're all in development. So we're kind of giving you a sneak peek of some of the adjustments that we're working on, as well as the mitigation measures. So in order to finalize it, there's a few more steps. We will be continuing to coordinate with FTA and the cooperating agencies, which are, there are a certain set of agencies defined through the NEPA process. In our case, it's TxDOT, it's TPWD, it's EPA, and the Corps of Engineers. So we coordinate with those folks on areas, topics that are within their jurisdictions. And then this fall, we will engage in a lengthy legal review of the documents with FTA, all leading up to concluding the documents and issuing them publicly around the end of the year. There are other next steps, though. There are other kind of key work areas here. And one we wanted to note is with project delivery. We've been doing preliminary design and to progress into future, more detailed and final design, we are soliciting 2 progressive design build teams. We have started that process with the intention of onboarding those designer builder teams in 2026. Those are the designers that are going to pick up the project and continue that work. We're also going to be developing a solicitation to procure the vehicles. That's something that'll be active in 2025 and 2026 as well. And just a note on continuing design, there's a lot more design to come and a lot more detail. Really what we're looking at in NEPA is kind of drawing the outlines and laying the concept for it. But with our design builder teams on board, we'll be kind of continuing to go deeper there. And the input that we receive, from this process or really any other, it flows through all of that process. Sometimes we get comments that are quite specific and they're not ones that we can truly address right now, but we hold on to those and track them through the system for when it is timely to resolve them. So that hopefully gives you a sense of kind of what's going on and what's next for us. And we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Let's pull up the virtual attendees. Looks like we have a hand raised there. And I'll work through the questions. Committee member Crossley, looks like you have a question.
Sort of 2 points, but I'd be curious if you want to talk about them, and then a question. Point 1 is the I believe the 38th Street parking, park and ride concept. What I wanted, and I think others, was to go taller, and that should be a dense TOD location, and we should build a 40-story downtown style building there with a parking garage in it that could serve the TOD. The worst possible thing would be for a public investment in surface parking, and I'm not sure if you're saying the interpretation is we want surface parking near a light rail station, which should never be a public investment. Then point two, I'm just very excited about the business interruption assistance. And just in a past life, I did the sort of original research on that concept 20 years ago that Houston Metro used to do that during light rail construction, and then lots of other light rail entities across the nation have followed those concepts. So I would love to help with that or anything. And my question is to make sure I understand the record of decision, and just we will reach a record decision hopefully at the end of this year, but we won't have a funding decision. But that the moment you have a record of decision, ATP could start spending money that counts for the match once we do get funding. And that's what I'm curious about, is you could start investing in things and that would count towards match the moment you get the ROD.
I talk about the last one first. That's a good point. You're right. So the record of decision is one federal kind of process point, but actually signing a grant agreement is another, which is still a few years away. But as you say, you're right. We are incurring costs now that we can match with that grant later. And so the federal guidance lays out, when you have pre-award authority for what. So when we do receive the ROD, we have that kind of pre-award authority to acquire right-of-way, to do utilities relocation, and to do, certain more detailed levels of design. So, yeah. The second one you mentioned too is the business assistance program. I just want to say I'm actually really excited to hear about your experience. I'd love to chat with you about it. And I'm sure we'll be back to this body with an update on that one that is specific, when we can. And then the first one you mentioned was 38th Street. Let me just say, and you might have more to add to this. I just wanted to note that I hear what you're saying, kind of this idea is a surface parking lot or a denser. Certainly a lot of the feedback that we heard from the public was about kind of what's the most appropriate, in that environment, what makes the most sense, and is a parking structure it, and people aren't really comfortable with that. Right now in the design, we're essentially provisioning that space for facilities that may include like multimodal connectivity, as well as some parking and also operator facilities, since it will be an end of line for at least some period of time. Would you add?
Yeah, to add on to what Jen was saying, that was one of the considerations, was we acknowledge that this is an interim end of line, and knowing that a surface parking lot ultimately isn't going to be likely the ultimate use of that piece of property as a system evolves. So that is a very good comment, and just want to acknowledge that statement. Hopefully that response helps there from our position.
I do see committee member Barry's hand up. Call on her next.
Yes, thank you. A couple questions. One was also regarding the business assistance program. Who is involved in putting that together? Do you consult with the businesses that could be affected and seeing and asking what it is that they want with that? Or what is the process? I'm not familiar like Jay is, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
I can comment on that one. And Giannis, you can feel free to cover anything I missed, because we are still in the process of developing kind of what our approach is, and Giannis is part of that. But kind of what is it, first of all? The way we're conceptualizing it is how to strengthen businesses in advance of construction, and what are the best ways to do that, which could be from technical to financial assistance. And then certainly when we're in construction, there's other things that we will be doing with regard to signage and access for deliveries and for customers. So we have been researching experiences by peer agencies around the country and considering some of the different possibilities, like sort of what's on the menu for a program like that. And our intention starting this fall is to reach out to potential partners who we could be working with on delivering services to those businesses, or who may be funding resources in addition to what we would put into that. And also we want to be talking to individual businesses and business organizations about what they see the needs are to make sure that we're tailoring any resources that are made available to what the needs would be.
Perfect. That is just very important to make sure that we're asking their needs as well and taking that into consideration. And then the mitigation slide, I'd love to see that again. I don't know if that's possible. There's a lot there. Can you remind me as well, the Army Corps of Engineers, their role with everything?
Sure. So one of the federal processes we need to go through is called Section 404 of the Clean Water Act. And because we're going through what's called jurisdictional waters, Lady Bird Lake particularly, the Corps is interested in any potential impacts, and we will need to receive a permit through that process. And so that's how the Corps is involved. And another means, the way they're involved through NEPA is the Corps is actually what's called a cooperating agency. And because they have, again, permit jurisdiction on the project, we work with them very closely as we've developed the draft EIS and the final EIS. In fact, they get a review of the document to make sure, as we're discussing anything related to the Corps and their permits, that they're engaged and involved to help us through the process. So hopefully that helps in terms of how the Corps is involved in the overall project itself. And it's probably, I think it's the next slide, Giannis, that explains that.
Okay, yes, this is helpful. I just know like historically the Army Corps of Engineers, I haven't worked with them, but I know there were some concerns with like Boggy Creek and the channelization of Boggy Creek and the impact it's made in terms of like community members. So hoping that in the process there's still a community voice being heard with their expertise as engineers. So I just wanted to state that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do see a hand from Chair Azar, and that also gives me an opportunity to acknowledge that he's joined the meeting. So out loud. So I'm going to call on him next. I see some other hands as well. We'll work through everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Sowers. I'll keep this quick. I just wanted to check in. We had a question from the community, and I know community cannot ask questions, so I just wanted to pass that along. I know staff talked about that we're not going to have residential impacts, and they have essentially been eradicated. So I guess the question is, will there be any property impact or eminent domain of property from residents or homeowners along Riverside, especially on Sunny Lane? And I guess I'm specifically talking about homeowners and residential impact.
Thank you for the question. Actually, as a result of the revised design, we don't see any residential impacts at all at this point in time based on the drawings. We've been able to maintain, for the most part, all the impacts within existing right-of-way. Again, refining the design. And as we go forward, you will see a refined design in the final environmental impact statement. But please keep in mind that design is going to evolve over the next couple of years as we have the progressive design builder on board, the contractors. There'll be various community touch points as the designs are developed as well. So again, it was a very positive outcome of the comments we received and the design refinements over the last year as part of the refined design development.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Committee Member Brooks.
A little bit further on Jay's question on the park and ride location. Do you happen to remember what the current zoning is of your preferred location?
I'd have to look and get back to you on that one.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure.
The real interest is, is it acceptable to an overlay that would provide the kind of environment that, like ETOD overlay or DB ETOD? At 38th Street, yeah. You may have more than one location, possibly in mind. This is just rough approximate.
Yeah, we can look into that and get back to you on that question.
I'm not seeing any other questions from the committee at this time, so I'll take a quick second to, I guess, really make more comments and questions on the presentation, which I really thank you for. It's great to see the progress, and we're really on the precipice of a very exciting time with the record of decision. So congratulating the team for all your progress. And I know it's been a unique and challenging environment that you've been operating in since 2020. So really just sending my appreciation to you. One thing that I do think it's great to hear that we're on track for the 2-year deadline for the NEPA, that we're doing the work on schedule. That's great to hear. I think it's of vital importance in 2026 is just such a crucial year for this project to make as much progress as we can and get the progressive design builders on. I mean, I think the community has shown again and again how important this project is to them. And I think there's a lot of voices out there that don't want to listen to the community of Austin about how important a project is to them and sort of try to override what the citizens have said, quite honestly. And so I think it's really important that we continue to make such rapid progress and really in 2026, really show the community that we're like, this is happening. Like we're making progress and going forward. We have our, our design builders on board, and we're moving forward rapidly. I think that's important on many different levels and working with many other governmental bodies as well. So I'm just so delighted about the progress and want to thank you for that, and just keeping that up is really great. I did want to make also a comment about the park and ride situation. I'm definitely appreciative. I think that one thing I've said in the past too is there are other parking resources that maybe contracts or lease agreements, in that area. There are some other garages, there are some other service lots that maybe partnerships could be looked at to get the spaces that are needed. I very much agree with what Member Crossley said about, like, in general, building surface parking, especially in a more urbanized area, which I would argue 38th Street is a pretty urbanized area at this point, is probably not what we want. And it would be great to see. I also was one of the people that didn't want to see a standalone parking garage that's just a parking garage. I want to see some other kind of benefit or layer there. But I'm also comfortable with the idea that it might start with a surface lot with a few other amenities or things going on there and some landscaping, and then eventually evolve into more of a ETOD type situation going on there. So I think that I would just encourage the team to show flexibility there. I think what I personally don't want is just a ugly parking garage on the middle of a crucial urban street corner. Like, that seems like a bad result, or permanent street parking. So like exploring all art options, partnerships with other entities, and just being willing to iterate that space as it evolves, and maybe being able to tell the community a bit about that too. I'm all for the 40-story downtown ETOD Tower of Power there, I really, I love that idea, but I'm sure that some of the neighbors would also want to give some input on that. But I think that working as a community, we can figure out ways to gradually iterate that as the need grows with the project. So that's just really a comment. You can respond or not, but yeah.
Well, I'll just respond very briefly just to appreciate that comment. And I appreciate the point. And I like your terminology about iterating the space, as it evolves, because I do think that agility there is sort of the name of the game, and looking for opportunities to accomplish, what needs. I mean, I would love it if there was some kind of development there that we would then partner with, and that would provide space for parking for people who want to park and then hop on the light rail. So we will always be looking out for those opportunities and try to be agile.
Thank you. I'll look around for any other committee members with questions or comments for the team. Chair Azar?
Sorry, just one quick question, which is, I'm sorry I joined late, so I might have missed this. I know staff talked about sort of the way it engaged with the community. Can staff also talk about the, through the NEPA process, what the engagement has looked like with the city of Austin and Cap Metro, sort of the other, partners that we have?
Sure. Chair, were you able to see the slide that showed the timeline by chance that talked about the coordination? If not, I can bring that up.
I missed it, and so that's fine if it was discussed. What I would say is, I know Committee Member Berry had mentioned that earlier as well. Please, if you can, share the slides with us through Giannis, Mr. Banks, so that we can also review it later. So my apologies. If you've been through it, I'm not going to ask you to repeat it right now.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions from the committee? All right, seeing none. Thank you so much for your presentation. We appreciate you coming out to us tonight. Okay. All right, everyone, based on the staff feedback, I think we're going to now go back to item 5, A and B, which are our action items, as they may be a little bit more speedy. And then we'll go back to 6B, which is the Transit Plan 2035. So I'm going to, for both of these action items to varying degrees, I'm really glad, Chair Azar, you've been able to join us. I hope you're enjoying your conference. But he's going to help facilitate these a bit. So the first item, 5A, is a light rail advisory group appointment. To remind everyone, this was when Project Connect was initially formed, there were technical advisory committees. There were, I think, 3 of those, at least 2. And this is sort of a concept to replace the technical advisory committees. But there is going to be a request that someone from our group will be sort of serving or observing on that group. So Chair Azar may want to facilitate that, and actually some of staff may want to help us too. So can you help talk us through that, Chair Azar, a bit?
Yes. Thank you. I'm happy to talk through that. So essentially, again, if you all remember, there used to be 3 technical advisory committees, and part of it was a reconfiguration from a governance perspective by the board. So this is a group made up of 7 community members. They're appointed by the ATP board, and I really want to thank the ATP board and leadership for really, giving the CSE an opportunity to have a member on the advisory group as well. This, I think, allows us to have a conversation back and forth, make sure that the conversations that we're having are aligned with what that working group is talking about and what the board is hearing. It should be generally not a very tough lift. And so essentially, hopefully we can appoint someone as that liaison piece as well. And that's really what it is. I will say, so unlike our body, that body will not be required to follow the Texas Open Meetings Act or things like that. So it's a little less stress in the sense that if you cannot make it for some reason, then essentially it's not that you're holding up a meeting or holding up some kind of conversation. The only last thing I want to mention is that currently the first meeting of the advisory group is scheduled for September 4th at 11:30 a.m. unless that has been shifted, in which case staff, please let me know.
Thank you
And
for
so,
that. Just a
sorry.
reminder, we're getting a reminder from our interpreters to slow down as well. Please finish your statement.
Yeah, my apologies. I'll make sure I go a little slower. And so essentially, I think the question for us today is if there's someone who is willing to serve on this body, if there's an interest. I had mentioned to Vice Chair Summers, I'm happy to take over that position if necessary. But if there is someone who's interested, I want to open it up and see if folks would like to serve as liaison on that body.
I do not think that I am interested. But one question that I had, so you did share that the meeting is September 4th at 11 a.m. Is that a consistent time that will be for that meeting? Or I noticed that is a Thursday.
I'm unsure about that. Hopefully, if we have staff that can help align to that, I think what I might be guessing is also that the first meeting happens and then folks figure out their own schedule, what it looks like for that body, just because they haven't met yet, is my understanding.
That makes sense. Is there any interest from the committee? Chair Azar indicated his possible interest, but I think both he and I are pretty busy with all kinds of things. So if there is someone who is interested in serving, I think that would be great. Commissioner Brooks, Committee Member Crossley.
I was going to say something like I would be happy to do it if no one else already was very excited to do it, kind of thing. So, but I think I would be happy to do it. But if somebody's more excited, I support them.
We'll line you all up and have a competition to decide who is more excited.
Honestly, if nobody else is, I think I'm fine with Committee Member Crossley for you being, thank you for agreeing to that. Want to open it up, of course, to see if there's somebody else who would like to serve in that position as well.
So we had possibly Commissioner, keep saying Commissioner, Committee Member Brooks or Committee Member Crossley, both sort of indicated interest, but I do think we need to make a decision today in order to have this person attend the September 4th meeting. I don't know if one of you, if you want to sort of. I know. I know.
I think I couldn't hear what Commissioner Brooks said. I'm very happy if he would like to do it. So I just want to, I'm happy to fill the space and I think it would be neat, but I'd be also happy not to have another obligation.
Yeah, I think that's the issue is your mic.
Is there any way we could split the appointment?
I'm unsure because it is one position. I think what we could do is, and maybe we can go ahead and vote on it that way, which is one person can be the primary and the other person can be the alternate. So if you cannot make it, just as long as you let the other person know, and then hopefully that is something that is acceptable to the board that is creating the committee as well. So we can check in with them. But essentially, if it doesn't work out, the primary would be the person who would be appointed. If not, then they would have a primary and an alternate. And if staff in the room has a recommendation, please feel free to provide it as well.
Yeah, we have, I think we're trying to see this. I'm not that familiar with this committee and how it's being set up. So seems to be.
Thank you, Mr. Max.
Yeah. I'm seeing thumbs up from the back. So yeah.
I do, and some of the other city commissions I work on, we do have primary and alternate when the primary cannot attend and sort of certain ex officio situations. So, and that's more formal than that because that's still TOMA commissions. So Texas Open Meetings Act, this is a little not to that level. And it's a lot about reporting back. So I think it's actually very crucial that somebody be at the meeting to report back to CAC or to express actions of CAC to the Light Rail Advisory Group would be my take on it. So I would like to just go ahead and move. I'm kind of looking up at Committee Member Crossley and Brooks. Maybe appointing Committee Member Brooks as the contact person and Committee Member Crossley as the alternate. And then if there's a problem with that, we can come back later and work that out. And then between the two of y'all would both be looped in on maybe the meeting information. And then if Commissioner Brooks can attend, then Committee Member Crossley could. So that's my motion, as to appoint Committee Member Brooks as the appointee and Committee Member Crossley as the alternate.
I will go ahead and second that.
Great. Thank you. Any discussion of that?
I will just quickly say one thing and highlight it, which I know Vice Chair mentioned, which is that essentially, yes, we can change this in the future as well. It should not be a very difficult process. So there is some flexibility.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion? All right, I'll call for a vote on that motion then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Commissioner Gorse, I think I may have missed your vote.
I voted yes.
Great, thank you. That is unanimous of those present. Thank you so much, everyone. That brings us to item 5B, which is our action item on the City of Austin ATP and CAP Metro budget recommendation. I'm going to let Chair Azar facilitate that discussion if you are prepared to do so.
Thank you so much. So just to provide some context to folks, if y'all remember, we were thinking of making recommendations regarding the budget. Of course, the City of Austin budget timeline, we just were not able to get it in time. So partially because of that, we're not making any specific recommendations to the City of Austin at this time. We do still have the opportunity at this meeting to make a recommendation regarding both looking at ATP and CAP Metro. We did have an internal conversation of, really, I honestly pulled it together. This is really on me. Because of other things that have been happening, I wasn't able to give this as much attention earlier. And so we had some conversations between Commissioner Brooks, Crossley, Ms. Summers, and myself. So we were just going back and forth, and we came up with some recommendations. This by no means means that we need to vote on it today. I think there's going to be ongoing work related to all of these. I took what we had and simplified it and wanted to see if folks had an interest in it. If we feel like we're ready to approve this today, we can. If not, of course, we can circle back to this as well. It just means that we would not be within the budget timeline. But of course, we're allowed to provide recommendations to these bodies at any time. So I just want to highlight that and not put ourselves in that pressure. The other thing I just wanted to mention was that really one of the things that came up for us was, we appreciate the work that, both CAP Metro, ATP, and all of our staff teams do, but how do we move towards really focusing on improving some of the things that we hear a lot of the times from transit riders, from our own experiences and onwards. So what I'll do here is, and again, with my apologies that this was not shared in advance, I'm going to share my screen and walk through the document. I can make changes, on language, or if we want to add something. If it looks like we might need more workshopping, we can again take it offline and come back. But I thought at least we'd give it a shot and see if we can get through it. So I'm going to share my screen and try to walk us through this. Sorry, wrong document. Since I have now so many files open, this is what happens. But essentially the idea is, making recommendations, starting off again, really, making those recommendations to the Austin Transit Partnership and CAP Metro regarding their FY 2026 budgets. This is, of course, in our role as the Community Advisory Committee. And our hope really is that these recommendations can help address the needs of existing transit users. So the first one was really, brought out by Mr. Brooks and then actually supported by Mr. Crossley as well, to see if there was a way for the CAC to have an ex officio or some kind of liaison, similar to honestly what we were just talking about, with the Customer Satisfaction Advisory Committee, or CSAC, that CAP Metro currently has. So it's a great group of community folks who are able to engage with staff in a way that honestly, because our purview is much bigger, we're not able to engage in the same way with some of the elements of what the work the CAP Metro staff is doing. So again, the idea would be to improve communication between the CAC and the CSAC. We're recommending that the CAC be given the opportunity to appoint an ex officio member to improve communication between the two advisory bodies, and also for the CAC to learn details of ongoing work. And, we want to highlight that we do have the practice. Again, we literally just did it in the previous action item, appointing members as liaisons to other bodies. And our hope, of course, with that is that the two bodies can inform each other. So we also know the conversations that CSAC members are having, and also anything that they want us to ensure that is part of the ongoing Project Connect sort of program of works. maybe I'll go through the entire document and then folks can, we can jump into asking questions or anything, and I'm happy to, again, go through it. The second one was really looking at transit operations assessment. So we're looking to see, whether Cap Metro can work with practitioners, reviewing best practices around bus and transit operations nationally to really conduct an assessment of our existing transit service, with, of course, the aim just being how do we enhance transit user experience. And we want to acknowledge that a lot of improvements have been made to our, bus and rapid services since the height of the COVID-19 pandemics, but there's gaps that really came out of the pandemic and the emergency associated with it that sort of have remained and, continue to influence what riders experience, particularly in terms of reliability and frequency of our, transit system. So the idea hopefully would be that Cap Metro can work with national specialists and advisors, and we know that they actually work with those folks currently even, but can we work with them to provide recommendations to Cap Metro and City of Austin to improve existing transit service? So highlighting issues that need to be addressed and any strategies that, can help fill gaps. And we, of course, want to acknowledge that, we should work to align this with the Transit Plan 2035 effort that I know we'll hear in a second here, the strategic mobility plan of the City of Austin, and of course, the work that the Austin Light Trail is having as well. One tiny thing I'll just mention that's not in here, but I want to clarify it. Again, we appreciate the work that has gone into it. And also there's not just always that there are gaps from a Cap Metro perspective, but sometimes, from a city perspective, things have come up as well. So whether it's dedicated bus lanes or others, so hopefully there can be more comprehensive set of recommendations for all three bodies to consider. And then the last one is, looking at essentially the transit user experience. Again, multiple things have come up over the years. A lot of them, I think Cap Metro is making really good effort to address them in a very, meaningful way. And so essentially we want to, make sure that that is happening. I'm also, going through this. So, we're really recommending that Cap Metro work to enhance the user experience wherever possible. And, looking at different things such as bus stop and shelter infrastructure, maintaining cleanliness at stops and on transit, expanding community intervention programs, improving the user interface. And I'm actually realizing that I have a little bit of a typo here, so I'm going to remove that. And essentially what this would look like is our recommendations include, updating and improving shade infrastructure, particularly along the Metro Rapid 801 and 803 and other stops where necessary. I think the shelters that we've seen come from Cap Metro on the new rapids are, in my opinion, really great and robust. How do we sort of maintain some of those standards elsewhere, particularly along our existing rapids? Looking at maintaining cleanliness, both at bus stops and aboard transit. Of course, this is a much larger challenge, but want to acknowledge that. Increasing community intervention specialists. So really having that aspect within the overall public safety sphere of the work that Cap Metro is doing. Y'all might remember that we actually made this recommendation last year as well. We had a great presentation from the community intervention specialists and the work that they're doing. So we want to see how do we enhance that further. And then the last one was really, working to improve the desktop and mobile transit applications. Again, I think this is ongoing work. So sort of acknowledging that, but maybe, expediting it a little to really provide some real-time service tracking and making payments easily. And similarly, again, ongoing work. I'm sure you all have seen notices that Cap Metro is working to improve the arrival boards at the stations, but essentially, particularly in the Metro Rapid, and asking for that to be done as quickly as possible as well. The last thing, just, closing is, again, our recommendations are really focused on building trust with existing riders, enhancing the transit user experience, boosting future ridership, and really providing enhanced mobility options for residents. And, really working to critically ensure that existing transit services meet the mobility needs of all Austinites and riders in the service area. So I will stop there and can take comments or questions. I might stop sharing and I might have to share again in a little while, but I want to be able to see folks.
I'll just take a second as since I'm chairing the meeting and respond. Thank you, Chair Azar, for your work on this. I know I gave a few comments, but I know that you worked really hard to prepare this. I think I'm greatly in support of everything in the recommendation. If others are not, I would be prepared to talk about that. I do think that I'm going to say some stuff publicly I maybe haven't said publicly. I mean, I think obviously the COVID-19 pandemic, lots of different services and functions of society took a pretty big hit. And as a frequent transit user, honestly, not as frequently as before the pandemic, CAT Metro's bus services are the service level has not recovered from where it was before the pandemic. And I honestly, personally believe that it is nearing it's a little bit of a crisis for the city right now. And it needs improvement. And so I think that, you know, I'm never sure, like, is an audit the best way to fix it? What's the best way to fix it? In-house, out of house, study, this or that. I think that this is an initial step to say, as a community advisory committee, this is something that needs to be looked at. And I'm very comfortable asking for a study of this or just some work and thought about these elements. I mean, I could say a lot more. I've said a few things here and there at these meetings in the past, but I do believe that it's really time this budget cycle for CAT Metro to really look at options and think about how to restore service. And this feedback is not just coming from my own lived experience riding transit, or just from other people in this group, but also from people that I talk to in my workplace and across the city, who, you know, people, some of my direct report employees who are constantly talking about, you know, understanding the frequency or understanding why the next bus disappears and doesn't come. And I think we're all appreciative of the many difficulties with employment and all things that happened in the pandemic. But candidly, I mean, you know, most of us since about 2022 have been operating in sort of a post-pandemic environment. And so I think it's time that we fix these issues. And especially, as I said earlier, being on the precipice of the Austin Light Rail project really getting underway, it's really, really important that we have this confidence of the public. So I'll say that I'm heavily in support of pretty much everything in this document. We can certainly discuss more about how we want to move forward. So thanks. I do see, I think I saw Miss Meyer first, so I'll call on her. Thank you.
Thank you. I did I just completely agree with what you said. And as a person with a disability who doesn't drive, it absolutely depends on our the bus system. And I've taken it almost every day since 1998. It was, I'm going to say, the last 6, maybe 8 months, the reliability of the bus system has taken a dramatic turn. I don't know what's going on. I follow several lines, like I get text messages on several different lines, and every day, all day long, I get the number 10 is out, the 300 is out, the 20 is out, whatever it is. It's been very, very unreliable. And the safety on Capital Metro and the cleanliness has also just nosedive. Honestly, like, if I could drive, I would have stopped being a Capital Metro user this year. It has really been bad, and I do support everything in the document. I think that all of those things would move forward in making a better rider experience. And if you want people to ride your bus, it's got to be clean and safe and reliable. And it's just not. And this year has been the worst I've ever seen it since 1998. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll call on committee member Gorse next.
Okay, yeah, and this is a different subject, but I'm wondering in terms of our having an ex officio member on CSAC, is the context that we don't currently have any members who are also on CSAC? Because I feel like in general, there are several committees that are in a similar situation, and the history was that back before last year, originally there were several appointees from various committees, but that wasn't working very well. I think it was kind of hard to find and retain people that way. So everyone was made a committee member independently of the other committees. And I think that CSAC and UTC and Access and the Mayor's Committee with Disabilities were all in that situation. But I thought the nominating committee tried to find people who were on those committees to serve on PCCAC originally. So I guess I'm just wondering if that's the reason we're doing that.
I thank you, Mr. Gorse, for that question. I will really turn it over to Mr. Brooks because I know he was passionate about this. I think the distinction would be that by appointing someone from our committee to their committee, there's no DOMA or quorum issues. So it's in some ways, from a procedural perspective, easier for someone from this committee to be there. I think we all agree that that liaison and communication cross communication is really integral. We were, to your point, really struggling to do that with nominations just because we have to meet quorum standards and TOMA requirements versus those bodies are able to engage in a different way. So our hope would be, again, to maintain that communication without, essentially creating a challenge where meetings can't proceed for some reason or another. But Mr. Brooks, I know this was really coming from you, so I want to turn it over to you for sure.
Okay. Yeah, obviously we ought to be talking. That is the CAP Metro Access Committee, which Mike is on. This committee, also the CSAC committee, which I also mentioned, also the Public Safety Committee. Now, we already have the ability to name as many ex officio people as we want. It doesn't have to go to the ATP board for us to do that. We can just go ahead and do it as an internal thing. It's a little bit more difficult to name somebody from the CAP Metro side because a board resolution would be involved to give that person the appropriate status. Nevertheless, I really think it would be advantageous to have people appointed in both directions who showed up regularly and communicated what they felt was important things going on in their committee. Further questions or further?
One thing I'll
Yeah,
just, sorry, Mr. Gorse, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I'm fine with that. And Mr. Brooks, I believe you've been generally going to those CSAC meetings anyway as a member of the public, but I guess I'd say that we might, I don't know if we necessarily want to do this, but it may be something to consider with other committees at some point in the future, whether we do it now or sometime in the future, or it's something for the nominating committee to continue to consider. But that's all I have to say.
I just wanted to acknowledge, Mr. Brooks, we'll take I think it's a very good idea to look at the CSAC and see if we can appoint as an ex officio member to our body. So we'll take that to our governance working group. And I really want to acknowledge, that these are, all of us are community members who are putting in their heart and time into this. So I really want to acknowledge and thank all the folks who serve on all of these different, in all these different capacities. I by no means want to say, some folks are not showing up or something like that, but just understanding that with that challenge, how do we do it in a way which doesn't impact ongoing business of committees? But with a big thank you to honestly all community members who not only serve in the transit sphere, but in so many different, aspects in our community.
Another thing, even just a simple step, and we do this at UTC where we get sort of agenda review of other relevant bodies. So even just the point of like having a monthly update of like what was the agenda of CSAC helps us understand what issues they are considering or maybe not considering that, so I think that would be even something as simple as that could be a step to just sort of like go like review what their agenda was. And I don't know if that's an officer's process or a public in our meeting process, but that might be another way to get at that. But I am supportive of the processes as discussed. I'm chairing the meeting and I do see that committee member Crossley also raised his hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on the discussion of an audit, to just add my thinking, which doesn't necessarily represent anybody else. But just, I would like to frame this as a sort of a, you know, time to review and optimize our approach. And in maybe in the way I would think of, like in 2018, there was CAP remap, which was a assessment of the classic ridership versus coverage and optimizing the transit system depending on our different priorities. And that I think, I hope we can support Metro staff and having the ability to work with us and the community to figure out our priorities and figure out which things we really want to make sure we do. And do we have less bus service hours but higher quality? And that it seems, and so my point being is that an audit might sound scary, and an audit might sound like a witch hunt, or we're going to tell you you're doing your job wrong. But I think what we're calling for is sort of some help and systems analysis to sort of figure out how to optimize, and for staff to maybe advocate for what they think should happen and stuff like that.
Chair, if I might, Mr. Crossley, I completely agree with you. I think I really want to acknowledge that some of the challenges, and I agree with what Ms. Summers and Ms. Meyer were saying. I have experienced the same, but we're by no means in some ways a unique transit agency or community. A lot of transit agencies and communities around the nation are facing these issues. So hopefully we can learn from them. And based on actually just something what you said in our earlier conversation, one of the things that we had done was work on essentially ensuring that the language is focused on an assessment. But one of the things I just, based on your comment, one of the things I added is I said, we recommend that CAP Metro work with practitioners reviewing best practices around bus and transit operations nationally to conduct an assessment or audit of the existing transit service with an aim to enhance transit user experience and optimize service. And happy to, of course, further change that as well.
And I
Yeah,
would
that's
say,
great.
I mean, the pattern is that a lot of transit agencies are still struggling after the pandemic. They have not recovered their ridership. There's a lot of, I mean, I could list out a lot of different crises going on around, as someone who follows transit nationally, I could list out a lot, but there are also some examples of agencies which are thriving. And I'm definitely, it's a message of support. But also, I mean, I really do want to say that I do think there are some things that have degraded in recent years and that have not gone unnoticed and do need improvement. Just about people's general day-to-day operations on the system. And so I agree. We want to support the staff and create a message of positivity moving forward, but that is not to dismiss the concerns at the same time. So, Committee Member Brooks, did you have your hand up?
Yeah. I follow CAP Metro quite closely, and I follow some other transit agencies. And yes, unfortunately, and this is unfortunate for the nation as a whole, CAP Metro is near the top. It's one of the best. It's a recovery of ridership since the pandemic is near the very top. So I would be very reluctant to accept advice from a consultant who primarily had worked for one of the other agencies. I think finding the right consultants is going to be really problematic. And and the worst case, we have a consultant who comes out and gives CAP Metro 100% blessing. Now, they may merit that, but would it be a believable consultant report? No. So we're more or less committed to having a negative consultant report. Otherwise, people won't believe that we've done it right and we've selected it right. So I am not inclined to have much enthusiasm for the consultant idea.
I mean, I'd have to go back and look at the exact language of the document, but I don't think it necessarily, it says talking with other practitioners. I mean, I just think that a lot of us are speaking from lived experience on the bus. And I really, and I hope everyone knows here, I am really an urban warrior. I can tolerate a lot of craziness in my, out there in urban environments, but the bus doesn't, despite the huge focus on public safety, the bus doesn't feel as safe as it did. It's not clean. The fare collection still doesn't work, at least for my experience, with all the work that's been done on that. The bus is not reliably frequent. The buses sort of disappear. The arrival boards are boarded up. I mean, there's just lots of, the app environment right now, at least for me, maybe I'm still just really slow, and I will hold out the possibility that I am getting to be a tech old person. But the app environment is very confusing and not easy to navigate. And so I'm sorry to be so negative, but I'm doing this because I think it is such a crucial,
Why are you?
vital part of our community that we must work on this. And so I've been talking about it in smaller ways, but I think it's really important if we reframe back to our agenda item, which is this sort of budget rec. I think if we could pull up that language, I mean, we can definitely remove whatever people aren't comfortable with. And I think that all of us who worked on that agree with that. To me, the point is less consultants or outside consultants than immediate acknowledgement and action on these customer service issues.
And you're too late.
Funding in the budget to
That's
address them.
happened 6 months or a year ago.
Sorry?
The board, the CAP Metro board already acknowledged that safety is a major issue. In their 30-year strategic plan passed in January, it was the #1 issue. You're behind.
I just know what I experienced riding the bus.
I don't deny your experience. I ride the bus too, and I've seen some of the same things. The question is what to do about them. Unfortunately, but the drivers keep blaming all of the problems on homeless people riding the bus. I think the problems, by the way, that since homeless people got passes have actually reduced. But as long as the drivers believe that homeless people are the cause of the problem and they are forced to carry homeless people, again, quote unquote, forced, the problem will persist.
Yeah, I think we need to recenter back to the recommendation. Chair Czar, could you pull up the language for us here?
Yes, and actually, I just also wanted to acknowledge then, based on some of these comments, I added something towards the end as well. Hopefully folks can see this right now. The recommendation right now. So I have that piece particularly open. I can move around as well. But I just wanted to highlight that there's a sentence in the end that I added, which is the assessment should include engagement with transit riders in Austin and the service area to learn about issues faced by riders and highlight lived experience. So I think to your point, Mr. Brooks, I do want to acknowledge that, yes, the idea is not for someone to tell us. And frankly, we can change that from national to something else. I think the idea is there a way to get an assessment that is outside of the agency itself? I'll stop there. And I, of course, have other comments as well.
I believe Secretary Garza may have had his hand up. Is that?
That is correct.
I did. I just had just one comment that I noticed that CAP Metro maintains a performance dashboard with reliability and safety and ridership per route. So that might be an interesting thing for some of us to look at and see how that correlates with some of our experiences as well, to just bring some of the data that CAP Metro actually maintains. I just put it in that chat. Might be something to look at, on some free time. But in general, I think I thank you for the team that worked on these recommendations, and it has my support.
People who have complained about the apps. Why is it reasonable to expect those apps to be fixed in less than 5 years? Please explain. It should take around 5 years to replace the old bite mark app with the new UMO and transit app. If it's happened sooner, that's already anomalous.
I guess, you know, Mr. Brooks, what I'd add to that is, I will just be honest, I cannot even remember the timeline. And this is the timeline that Cap Metro staff itself came up with. If I remember correctly, they started engaging with us on this issue in 2022. The expectation was to have a new app in 2023. In 2023, we were told we could not get it done. The app would come in 2024. In 2024, we were told that we can use the National Transit app, and then UMO would be used for essentially payment. So now we have people who are using two separate apps, one to track, you know, real-time experience, one to make payments. I also want to acknowledge that unlike the old Cap Metro app, the current app only shows real time, but doesn't tell us when a scheduled bus is arriving. So it honestly makes transit like planning for a trip. Like if I'm sitting at night and trying to see, I want to get somewhere at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, I don't have that same ability that I actually had with the old Cap Metro app. So I guess to your point, like, yes, it should take 5 years. And I would say we're 3 years in. Hopefully in another 2 years, we can resolve that issue. This is, again, not for us to say the challenges don't erupt, but I think I will just be very honest. I do feel like we're not looking at the challenges head on and trying to see how we address those issues in a very meaningful way. Oftentimes we get this, oh, this will happen next year. I mean, again, I'll bring it up again. We're talking about the rapids on the east side. We were told as a community that we would have the rapids running with full frequency. Again, I might get this timeline wrong, but in 2023. Then we were told it was going to be 2024. Then we were told it was going to be 25 early on, but then we were told it's coming in 25, but the frequency will still not be the same. And I'll be sure even today sitting here, I'm unsure, and maybe I just don't know, when will we have the frequency on those new rapids? We have rapids that are just running in a way that is not meeting the standards that we as a community and Cap Metro promised to our riders. So I guess, you know, again, how do we meaningfully address these issues? This, again, is not about challenging. Again, these challenges are being faced by multiple people, but I also don't want to shy away from the fact that we have some real issues on our transit. Yes, the issue of, for example, homelessness comes up. Again, we're not by any means the only city in the nation to have unhoused folks. How do we address their needs in a meaningful way? How do we manage that? I think is an important thing to understand. Same goes for cleanliness. Yes, you know, if somebody urinates on a bus, I know that's very hard to manage in the moment, but what does it look like to have it clean in a reasonable way? What about garbage cans at bus stops that are overflowing? That isn't unhoused people causing that. I'm not sure what the issue behind it is. So again, the idea of an assessment is not to point fingers, but to see, okay, where are the gaps and how do we meaningfully address them? And there's so many ways that we can talk about, but I don't want to ignore the fact that these issues keep on coming up from the community. As the community advisory committee, I want to make sure that we're advising the board about what we're hearing.
My question is, how are you sure that it's Cap Metro's fault? If they can't hire people because wages have shot up, if they don't have deliveries because the supply chain is broken, how can you reasonably expect Cap Metro to solve the problem?
I guess, Mr. Brooks, I will turn to you and ask you a question. If you have asked the city to provide better sidewalks, is it the city's fault? And should you not ask them to make those improvements for the community because there are challenges around sidewalk building? I'm not the transit planner here or the professional. There's folks way smarter than me that can provide those solutions. But at the same time, as a rider and as a representative of the community, I want to make sure we're highlighting the voices of the people that are being missed in these conversations.
So we are having a very robust conversation about this. I want to keep recentering that we do have a recommendation that does relate to the Cap Metro budget. And the proposal is to consider a budget recommendation for them to spend money in their budget to analyze what's going on. Personally, I don't have a strong feeling whether it's internal or external consultants. I just want to know that these issues are being looked at holistically as part of the overall customer service. I think that we're not really posted to discuss Cap Metro service. It's understandable that we're verging into that discussion, but I think we should move towards taking a vote on the recommendation or amending the recommendation and then voting on it. And I think we should move towards that direction. I would look around to see if anyone else who hasn't had an opportunity to offer comment on the recommendation or discussion. Do we actually have a motion right now? I think we do. We do not have a motion. So we're still discussing with the potential for a motion to be made.
I'll motion that we vote on the recommendation.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms. Mayor.
you.
I'll go ahead and second that. And can I ask for a clarification from Ms. Mayor about two things? One, that the chair be given the authority to add in the proper template and record our vote. So that's part of what we would be doing. And then the other thing is I have removed the word national and nationally. So essentially we're talking about specialists and advisors. I don't think this body has a strong opinion whether they should be national experts or not. And I hope that's open to the motion maker.
That's fine with me.
Thank you. So the motion is made and seconded. Can we pull up the motion one more time as the chair? When that happens, I do need to just sort of summarize the motion again for everyone so that everyone knows the motion. And then there'll be an opportunity if anyone wants to amend or propose an amendment, and then we can take a vote. So I'll guide us through where we are right now.
And before I scroll to the top, I again want to mention the word nationally here is removed and national specialist is removed based on the feedback.
Thank you. This is a budget recommendation for ATP, Cap Metro, and from the Community Advisory Committee. So the first piece is to improve communication with the Cap Metro Customer Satisfaction Advisory Committee and potentially appointing ex officio members to this Customer Service Advisory Committee so that the two groups can continue to learn about one another's work and create communication channels. And then the second piece is transit operations assessment that Cap Metro work with practitioners reviewing best practices around bus and transit operations, acknowledging some gaps that are made that are existing right now after the COVID pandemic, making sure that transit riders can access transit reliably and frequently. Aligning with Transit Plan 2035, City of Austin Strategic Mobility Plan, and Austin Light Rail, and also to include engagement with transit riders in Austin and the service area to learn about issues faced by riders and highlight lived experience. And then the last one, and this is to me very aligned with the budget piece in terms of the transit user experience and infrastructure, recommending that Cap Metro work to enhance your user experience by focusing whenever possible on adequate bus stop and shelter infrastructure, maintaining cleanliness at stops and on transit, expanding the community intervention program, which was something we also had in our budget recommendation last year, I'll mention, and improving the user interface of existing application for transit users. And that includes updating and improving shade infrastructure, particularly along 801 and 803, but also other stops, maintaining cleanliness at stops and aboard transit, increasing the community intervention specialists to address public safety concerns through alternate models that enhance the experience of riders and serve the needs of operators, improving the mobile and desktop transit applications to provide real-time service tracking and make payment easily, and bring back the arrival boards at existing Metro Rapid stops with accurate information as quickly as possible. And I believe that is the end of the recommendation. And then, so we say here, these will build trust with the riders, extend transit user experience, boost ridership, provide enhanced mobility. So that is the motion that is before us with the motion's been made and seconded. So if folks, I think we've had a lot of discussion. We can certainly have more discussion, but I think if anyone has an amendment, this would be the time to make that. All right, seeing none, I think I'm going to call for a vote unless anyone has some remarks. All right, I'll call for a vote on that. All those in favor of the budget recommendation, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 So I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Myself, member Reed, Gorse, Garza, Azar, Meyer, and Crossley. All those opposed? Member Brooks. And I think committee member Barry had to depart, so she is not voting on that. So that does pass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 1. All right. Thank you for that, committee members. All right, so that takes us through our action items today, and we'll now move to having already addressed 6A, which was our first discussion item. We'll now move to 6B, which is CAP Metro Transit Plan 2035.
Good evening. I am Lawrence Dieter, and I help lead this service planning team at CAP Metro. I'm joined this evening with Rose Liska, another service planner, and Melissa Ortiz, who leads our community engagement team. So we want to thank you for allowing us to be here this evening. We are very excited that we are in our engagement period with the public on the transit plan. And so I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about what the transit plan is, discussing funding and budget. There are a lot of changes. We definitely will not get to them all tonight. I am trying to center them on things related more towards the light rail. We do have a very detailed website. I have some information about that further in this conversation. So now to keep things fun, Giannis is advancing the slides for me. So yeah, thank you, Giannis. So we'll try and keep in sync somehow here. The first is a quick reminder of where we are in this project. We kicked off in the spring of 2024 with data collection. We had a massive community engagement effort in the fall of 2024. We worked on scenario development during the spring of 2024. And now we are in our second major round of community engagement through October 31st. We plan to take this to our board of directors for approval in November 2025. Next slide, Jonas. To develop our scenarios, we used a combination of what we heard from the community and the outreach data, and along with existing conditions and travel patterns to help guide us in making changes to the system. We'll go over highlights from each of these areas, but before we advance from this slide, I will note that we have there's a community outreach report on our website. The address is at the end of this this presentation, and we have a existing conditions virtual report, which is a very cool. It's one of those online reports that you can scroll through. You can click on a lot of the data. You can zoom in on the maps. There's not only market data, but there's operational data within that report. So next slide, please. In our last round of engagement, we met people in a variety of places through pop-ups, focus group meetings, in-person and virtual public meetings, and along with that staff outreach. And we are working with our community connectors and we work with our community connectors to chat with people in their communities. Community connectors are paid ambassadors that are deeply plugged into the communities. It's one of the ways that we try and reach people that aren't traditionally involved in these processes, along with our focus groups is another great way to reach those that are often left behind in transit planning projects. I will just note that we do hear many similar comments that were recently expressed when we talked to the public. They are taken forward and they're discussed and promoted to the appropriate teams. But that said, this is a transit service plan, and so I will not be discussing tonight recommendations on how to improve areas that are outside of the scope of this project. Our community's input was critical for developing these recommendations. And so now, as we go forward, we again want to see if what we developed aligned with what we told them, and take this as an opportunity to make further adjustments to the plan. Next slide, please. Probably not a surprise to many of the members of this committee. The greatest predictor of successful transit is density of people and jobs. So we did use population and employment density as we adjusted and designed for our services. The market analysis area, we currently have about 2 million people and 1 million jobs. The Campbell 2045 projections, which is not on this map or in this presentation, but I believe is online, is for just over 4 million people and 2 million jobs. We see the greatest increase along the North I-183 and I-35 corridors, with kind of how they split off, a lot of that filling in the future. Realizing that population and employment density aren't the only things we should be looking at, we also wanted to make sure we looked at equity demographic as we created something. Next slide, please, Giannis. As we created our a transit propensity score, and this is a tool that identifies the areas with the highest need, demand for transit. And those equity measures included low income households, 0 to 1 vehicle households, population that's over 64, people who have a disability, non-white population density, and then low income job density. This particular map shows the top 20% of transit propensity, but we used this along with an entire layer of transit propensity as we were understanding where transit could be successful. So we'd often pull up these layers along with our community feedback database, the population layer, density layers I just showed you, and several other databases such as our origin destination data that we conducted last year, as we look to make changes to the service. We also were often looking at performance data on our fixed routes. It was from April 2024, but we really wanted to understand what was working, what's working well, and what was less productive. So next slide, Giannis. I believe I think I took all the animation out of this one, but we'll see. Okay, yes, I did. So first, Transit Plan 2035 is CAP Metro's vision for the future and includes recommendations for changes to our transit network over the next 5 to 10 years. And while we don't have a crystal ball to see the future, we do have a lot of data that I just discussed, and that helped us make decisions about what our future transit system will look like. It includes the data analysis and community input I just discussed. Just again, emphasizing that community input was critical for developing our recommendations. It's also important that our primary funding comes from sales tax, and it's not growing as fast as it used to. And this limits how much we can expand our services. As stewards of taxpayer funds, it is really important that we are financially responsible. Every dollar counts, so our goal is to propose feasible and reasonable recommendations. Ultimately, this plan was developed with the ideal transit network in mind first. We developed everything first, and then we had to adapt it to fit our resource constraints. So next slide, please. And this one may have some animation on it, Giannis. The results of all this input is a roadmap for the next 5 to 10 years. And then there's even some ideas beyond that. These are recommendations for bus, rail, and pickup service. The changes being recommended involve aligning our current service with revised travel patterns, preparing for high capacity transit, including both light rail and new rapid lines, and exploring regional expansion. So let's talk about the phases in our draft plan and how we're working towards a more connected region. Within the first 5 years before Austin Light Rail launches, we're focused on budgeting responsibly and making cost-efficient changes. We want to grow ridership, help more people get where they need to go, and specifically, this phase will include changes associated with bringing the new rapid routes to their full vision in alignment with Project Connect. It includes additional frequency for both routes and reopening the 2 new park and rides. After that, how about a click? Thank you, Giannis. After that, as we prepare for the opening day of Austin Light Rail service, the next service phase will include plans for future route and includes changes to our bus network that will make it work better with light rail. We expect these to happen 5 years from now. And next click, thank you. And finally, our draft plan includes concepts for what happens after Austin Light Rail is launched and beyond. The proposed changes for 10 plus years in the future will address transit system growth throughout the region and any concepts for Project Connect not implemented in the previous phases. CAP Metro also updates its service plan every 5 years. And so the recommendations in this category will be updated again around in 2030. It's important to remember that the transit plan is not a service change. When the project is completed and approved by our board of directors, all of the changes it proposes will then be further refined as part of CAP Metro's standard service change process, which includes additional community engagement and another round of board approval. As I mentioned, we are in our second round of engagement. We've been very busy. It launched a little over a week ago, goes to the end of the month. We do have a virtual open house on Tuesday, August 26th, and then an in-person meeting on the 28th over at CAP Metro's headquarters at 2910 East 5th Avenue. We're going to be having pop-ups and have been having pop-ups. There was actually a concurrent pop-up with this meeting over at Republic Square. And all throughout the region, we're having our focus groups are ongoing. We're about halfway through our focus groups, I believe. Our community connectors are having events. We have social media going out on a regular basis. And then we do have our very robust online tool. Hopefully some of you have actually already looked at this and maybe are coming prepared with some questions. But this is what happens when you click on when you go to our website, you can click where the little map is, and it says click here, kind of under the closed caption right now, and it'll take you to the tool itself. And it has a couple various areas where you can review the changes. We've used a lot of videos to explain the changes. There's a survey as part 2, and then part 3 is a remix map. So if you want to see all this in an interactive online map, you can do that on the remix map, and you can also comment on that. Next slide, please. So we've organized these changes geographically. As I mentioned for this presentation, we're probably going to spend more time. Well, I'm going to spend more time talking about the changes that are 5 years in the future because it's more relevant to Austin Light Rail. But I also very much acknowledge that this committee is very interested in the community as a whole and CAP Metro service as a whole. So what we can't get to, I do encourage you to go look at, maybe join us for a future meeting. If necessary, we're happy to come back and chat with you more. And again, we'll do this plan again before light rail opens up. So always chances to adapt. Okay, Giannis, the next slide has a lot of animation on it. Could you click it maybe 3 times? Right, to start off with. Okay, right there should be good. The Austin Transit Partnership is designing and constructing light rail, and Cap Metro, the city, and ATP are coordinating on several elements that go into that. One of the areas that require coordination is the routing of buses running on Guadalupe Street between downtown and the University of Texas. When Austin's light rail comes online, routes 1 and 3 and Rapid 101 and 103 will be some of the most impacted routes because they substantially overlap with the alignment of the light rail corridor. So we have some options for how we can change those 4 routes to best accompany the light rail system. In the first one, where we call it Rapids on Sanjak, Rapid 801 and 803 would move off the Guadalupe corridor and then run parallel to Austin's light rail between UT and the convention center at an every 10-minute peak frequency. Well, routes 1 and 3 wouldn't have any changes and would run alongside light rail on Guadalupe at their existing every 30-minute frequency. How about a couple more clicks, Giannis? We'll see where we can get to. Well, he's doing that. This next option is called shortened local routes. This is where routes 1 and 3 would end near light rail stations and would not serve downtown or the segment between Republic Square and UT. Rapids 101 and 103 would remain on Guadalupe Street, running alongside light rail at every 10-minute frequency, and couldn't possibly make some additional stops in that area. So for the locals, the Route 1 and 3 from the south would end as close to Congress Avenue Station as we could get them. And from the north, they would end, actually, that north arrow is at the wrong spot. They would actually end probably around Dean Keaton and Guadalupe to bring people to UT's campus. So the final option, and there's always the one I like to say, I think this is the one that public probably has anticipated the most, is Rapids ending at the end of the line. So Rapids 801 and 803 would end at light rail stations at 38th. So both of them would end at 38th from the north. And the 801 would end at Otorf from the south. The 803 would still, again, try and get as close to the Congress Avenue station as possible, coming from the south. The 1 and 3 would stay running alongside Austin's light rail at an every 30-minute frequency. The Rapids would also continue their every 10-minute frequency. We have a lot more material to cover, but I feel like this may be of importance to this committee. So at the discretion of the chair, I am willing to pause here and take questions.
Yeah, I am looking at our time, and I think we're going to go over our typical timeline. Normally this committee is pretty diligent about getting done at 7 p.m. And I think regardless, we're going to go over that today. I do think that this is really important and something we have asked about, the community has asked about. So I think if someone has some questions, just briefly, this might be a good time to go ahead and ask those.
Chair, I know Mr. Crossley has his hand up. I just had a question as well, which was if it is fine with staff and the committee members, we can certainly ask Cap Metro team to come back, because I agree. I think we had promised this Cap Metro staff at least an hour, because this is a hefty conversation and I don't want to rush them through their presentation as well. So certainly I think we can ask questions right now, but if staff is agreeable and the committee members are agreeable, we can make sure that there's space on our next agenda to continue the conversation as well.
That makes sense. Member Crossley?
I guess, just looking at this without knowing the trade-offs, scenario 1 seems by far the best scenario for transit users and having more transit users, and using Project Connect to develop a grid network of multiple high capacity transit lines through places like downtown is one of the greatest benefits of this investment. And so my question is, what are the reasons not to do number one? And is it simply the car lanes arguments and things like that, or what?
I heard you ask what are the reasons not to, and then I had a little bit of trouble understanding what you said after that.
I'm sorry, I don't know what I was assuming it might be people not wanting to have dedicated transit lanes, wanting to preserve car priority lanes or something like that. Like, so what are the trade-offs that wouldn't let us have the number one? So maybe I'm wrong about what it might be.
Well, I mean, I think the biggest trade-off to number one is it would require additional rapid vehicles to deviate over. It's not a cost-neutral solution. You are right. One of the benefits is opening up new markets. We don't really, this is a hard one to try and really gauge how it would impact light rail ridership. I think, people that want to transfer definitely would. As things change, as there's more emphasis on East Campus, this really is an interesting solution. This one also allows us to take advantage of our new transit priority lanes on San Jack and Trinity. Is one of the other thoughts that kind of was the genesis of the concept, is what could we do to leverage those lanes even more. It is worthwhile noting that we will have, in the design, the plan for on Guadalupe is for it to be a bus. Are we calling it a bus and local access lane? Basically, it's basically a bus lane along Guadalupe with allowing, one block of local access for autos and deliveries type deal. So both corridors do have bus lanes. I would like to point that out. And at the chair, and as far as how we continue, totally, however you want to direct this, we're happy to.
Sure.
Are you using separate slides or are you going from the website?
Excuse me?
Are you using separate slides or are you going from the website?
We have a slide deck, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
It might not be the same.
Yeah. I'll just say it's hard for me to comment because I just saw that. I haven't seen that image before. My intuition is the same as Member Crossley, that my gut reaction is that I like the first option because it kind of build something new and robust. Like, I haven't seen all the data behind it, or, I know that the eastern part of downtown historically has not been as much density of jobs and housing. Perhaps maybe that's changing. We just talked about that. But I think for me, number one is quite intriguing. I would definitely really love to dig into that more with the staff, like long-term. I think this is a key piece. When I'm out in the community, you said this as well. People say, well, the bus is going to go away on the drag, or the bus is going to go away. Like, that's something the community really is very, very curious about. Mm-hmm. And so I think just seeing some options that provide people the opportunity to discuss is a great step to see this. So acknowledging that as well. So anyway, I thank you for that, but I don't have a lot. I just have an initial reaction, but I'm not, I want to chat more. So, yeah.
And those, those are all available on our website.
Yeah.
So.
And certainly it's something where you have to get off and transfer and there's no option to continue. Like when something stops at downtown, that is a little bit more impactful to the experience and the possible opportunity to take a one-seat ride to your destination. So, I mean, the two others have routes that sort of stop at some point, whether it's the local or whether it's the rapid. So that does feel a little bit more impactful as a transit user to have a feeder service versus another through service. But I think the question is too about the vehicles. I'd like to dig in there too. I mean, I'm going to ask this rhetorically. I don't really want you to respond, but there's been a question in the past about like, should the rapid vehicles look or be different than other CAT Metro buses? Or what's like when they first came out, there was a big commitment to making them look different, and some of them were bendy buses and some weren't. But, you know, I think that that's, I don't know, like, obviously we might need more vehicles. We probably need more vehicles, period, for everything we want to do. But I personally don't feel strongly that rapids have to be different vehicles than other routes necessarily. So anyway, I'll stop there. Maybe I think I just saw that committee member Garza had to drop as well. I would like to get a check on so we are at 7:02 p.m. and I'm feeling badly because I really hope I'm showing it, but I'm very excited about the conversation in this presentation. But I also want to make sure we have adequate time and that more people don't have to drop and we don't lose quorum, and that we really have the time to give you what you need. And we're so appreciative of you being here. I'd like to maybe just open it up real quickly to our committee member, get a read on what people are thinking with that. What do people think? Would you like to take 15, 20 more minutes? Would you like to stop and have them come back, or have them, or is there something you particularly want to see in from the presenters?
Chair, I will just say I'm open to either, and I defer to the committee. One thing I think I'm just thinking of is it would be helpful is after the meeting, perhaps staff can circulate this via Mr. Banks to the committee so we can all dig into it with some detail. I also, again, realizing the robust need of the conversation, I'm also wondering, I think before our next meeting, it might be worthwhile for our CAP Metro Service and Infrastructure Committee Working Group to also perhaps dig into this to another level of detail and provide recommendations as well.
Yeah. How many more slides do you have? Can you tell us? I know, I'm so
I think
sorry.
it's about 6 or so. It may not sound like that many, but there's definitely, it's between 6 and 8, I think, but there's definitely conversation that would probably be wanted to have.
Yeah, let me check with our committee, because we're currently at 7, 1, 2, 3, we're at 7 people here. I would be inclined, unless anyone has to immediately leave, to go to about 7:30 and see how far we are. And then if we're not done at that point, we can just wrap it. And I think we should have a second presentation, maybe with a working group meeting intermediarily. Does that sound okay to the committee? I'd really like to at least hear the presentation, because we really, really value it, hearing from you. And if I have 2 or 3 people that have to leave now, we may have to stop. But if people can stay till 7:30, I thought maybe we could get through that presentation. Sound good? Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. Giannis, can you get us to the next slide? Yeah, you got 9 or so clicks to get there. There you go. Okay, thanks. Really, in this area, we're just looking to propose to create our Route 2 as a loop. That's the result of an operator. We are looking to realign our Route 335, which operates along 38th and 39th, to continue further east on Manor to 51st, and then into Miller. The 345 is a new route as a result of CAP remap. Its ridership has been low, so it is currently proposed for to be eliminated, and then to kind of create a east-west connection to Hancock Center, we'd reroute to 335. if you want to click one time there, Giannis, we do have a vision for a long-term route, one of our senior routes to become a local route and operate every day of the week as we try and adjust some service in Central. But this will get us next click back on where we're looking to make some adjustments related to light rail. Now, you know, it's also important to remember to discuss some of these other changes so that because they kind of build upon one another. But within the next 5 years, we're looking to extend Route 310 to connect it to Eastside, from our Eastside Bus Plaza to Barton Creek Mall. At the same time, we would shorten up the Route 30 so it would end at the mall. The Route 350, we're looking for it to be our next frequent route at every 15 minutes. And then the 271 would be extended further east to the HEB at Pleasant Valley to connect Dale Valley to a grocery store. While we know that HEB has plans to build a store near FM 973, that community really needs a connection over to HEB, and that also provides a connection to our existing Rapid 800. So we build towards a more connected system. Click for me there, or Giannis. So then what happens in 5 years when light rail turns on? Well, one, we look to increase the frequency of Route 20 and discontinue Route 43. We are starting with this service change in August. The 43 is now going out to the airport. So we look to replace that with just one route going out to the airport. Route 350, after having its frequency increased, would also serve the airport. So we would have 2 routes serving the airport every 15 minutes. I think this addresses, if you think back to Darren's presentation, where the community heard a lot about access to the airport. We heard that same thing, and we're trying to bring it. And also the other thing is we are looking to dip the 271, possibly not all the way to the airport, but to the Hilton. If you're familiar with the Hilton, is on the outskirts of it, and that becomes a little transit hub for us outside the airport also. Our Route 217 would be realigned to serve Vargas over in the Mentopolis area. I would have its frequency adjusted to every 60 minutes in order to cover the additional route miles that it has. Our Route 228 would be extended to Eastside Bus Plaza. So it would connect both the intersection of Pleasant Valley and Eastside Bus Plaza. This would start to create a bit of a feeder route for light rail also. And then a huge one. When we look at what's happening when light rail opens up, this is probably one of the more significant changes we are proposing, is that we would propose the creation of a mega east side crosstown, where we would combine the southern portion of the Route 7 with the northern portion of the Route 300 and have that operate north-south along the east side. The northern portion of the Route 7 would then end in downtown. It would follow its current routing and end in downtown. The eastern or western portion of the 300 would revert basically back to the 331, if anyone remembers that route from before CAC remap. So some pretty significant restructuring there. We really see feeding the Pleasant Valley station. CAP Metro just sees that as the major transfer and feed to the line. Of course, the light rail will be operating every 10 minutes along that line, but we see that as a major thing. Now, I just discussed basically changes between the last 2 slides. Or not counting almost the last 2 slides. I've discussed changes to our top 3 ridership routes. This is clearly impactful to our community, and we'll want to definitely listen to what they have to say about that. Over in the southwest area, what we're looking here is to leverage the investment that CAP Metro is putting in with the 800 as we look to next year, increase the frequency of the 800. We went and opened a park and ride lot, the Goodnight Ranch Park and Ride. We want to leverage all these investments and make some adjustments to this area. First off, the Route 318 would be realigned to create an east-west connector. It would operate picking up the eastern portion of the current 333. It's the part of the 333 that today operates every 30 minutes. But this helps then connects Oak Hill to areas like South Park Meadows, and then also over to the Goodnight Ranch area. This does remove service along Westgate Boulevard between Davis Lane and Stasny. The 333 would be extended south from its current terminus to the Goodnight Ranch Park and Ride lot. So again, that's our investment towards for that. We would also make an adjustment where the Route 315, this would happen at the same time that the 310 extends out to the mall. We would shorten the 315 to the Westgate Transit Center. Then we do propose to fully eliminate our flyers. Which, the flyers include 103, 105, 111, 171, plus 135, and 142. These are mainly for commuting, and they only run a couple times on weekdays in the morning and in the evening. And we do acknowledge that people are coming back to the office and items like that, but we have not seen any ridership return to these routes. And we believe it's because of how people travel is fundamentally different. And it's important to remember that the flyers mostly operate on local roads. And so for most of these, there's local route options to continue for people that want to continue to commute downtown or to UT via transit. Most, not all, but we really want to invest our resources elsewhere to match changing travel patterns. And then for the 5-year, we are looking for Transit Plan 2035, we are proposing to then transition the adjusted 315 that I just spoke about into rapid 815 to provide rapid service that's been discussed that's in Project Connect. The frequency would start it would actually improve along 71 from every 30 minutes to every 20 minutes, but it would start at every 20 minutes. We would have opportunities, however, to increase frequency as ridership grows and the land use patterns in the area change. Along Menchaca, the 815 would end at William Cannon, connecting into the 333. This is a bit of a build towards the full extension down to Slaughter, but currently the land use is more supportive for rapid service north of William Cannon. If you drive along Menchaca, you can land a plane on Menchaca as you get south of South Congress. So not as transit supportive housing. It does require vehicles, operators, funding. So as I mentioned, it's currently in our 5+ year outlook. We'd also in that time frame look to take that 310 and increase its frequency to every 15 minutes, be in the next route to join our high frequency network. So providing a frequent connection from the east side to the west side. And now moving northeast, this is the next area where we take advantage of our investment in the 837 rapid, with it going to every 10 minutes. So after investing in rapid service and the Expo Park and Ride, we would look to make a series of changes in this area, most likely next year, concurrent with increase of frequency. The first change I'd like to highlight is we would extend the Route 18 from its current end at Tannehill and Rubberville out 969 to Decker up through Community First, This would be an every 30-minute route extending out there. This would be laying the foundation for another rapid line, the MLK rapid line that goes out to 969. But as we make that change, and then we look at the immense popularity of the Decker pickup zone, where we've already seen significant switch of ridership from the 233 to the pickup zone, we would look to eliminate the 233 and the 237. Again, keeping in mind that most of the 237 is covered by the eight new extended 18. It's every 30 minutes instead of every 60 minutes. The 233 and 237 are both every 60-minute routes. And as we've seen from our community, that they do prefer the pickup out in that area. Another significant change out in this area is creating another longer east-west connection by combining the routes 323 and 339. This would provide a frequency boost on the 339 to every 30 minutes, which is a common request we've heard from our community out there. We would probably look to also extend the 339 would go down to at least to the Springdale HEB. Finally, because of the duplication of the 837 along Manor, we would follow what we've done in other areas with rapid service. We would look to reduce the frequency of the 20 portion along Manor to every 30 minutes. And we would split the Route 20 into two routes on UT's campus. So the northern part would be the Route 320. And so that is our significant, that is a significant pack bundle of changes that we are looking to make there. But overall, this is a significant investment in the Northeast community. So how about another click? Can you try again? Yeah, okay. So in the 5-year outlook, we are looking to expand our Northeast ATX pickup zone also. We also would look to possibly route the Route 990 up to ACC Highland before it dips to UT in downtown. We've heard from the communities of Elgin and Manor that they want better connections to our transit system, especially as Highland redevelops and becomes a major destination. Northwest area, this area is, first off, just want to acknowledge that our first changes would coincide with the Broadmoor station opening. We would look to extend the 392 to Broadmoor, operating it through the domain to connect that area. We would look to remove the 466. It would be mostly covered by the extended 392 and via the pickup zone that also exists up in that area. In the future, this is an area where, unfortunately, as of right now, our changes are 5+ years. But could you give me a click there? Sorry, Giannis, advancement. We heard from our customers that they wanted better east-west connectivity, particularly in the Walnut Creek and Runberg areas, and better connections to the main. So also we heard that they would like improved service along 183. And as you saw in our transit propensity index slides, that's a high growing area and an area that needs that. So in the future, we would propose a restructure of several routes there. The 325 would become a 30-minute route that runs between North Lamar Transit Center, up Metric to Tech Ridge. This route would also serve the HEB and the hospital that are just off of MOPAC. It would operate at every, I believe I already said this, but every 30 minutes. So the 325 would become a true north-south route, kind of instead the combination that is today. The 326 would pick up the Runberg piece of the 325 and become a major east-west route from the Norwood Transit Center along Runberg to the Gateway Shopping Center. By covering the Gateway Center and picking up some areas, we would then streamline the 383 so that customers traveling from Northwest Austin can get to the North Lamar Transit Center faster. We also have some exciting recommendations for new routes and services and brand new pickup zones. The 2 new pickup zones would be along 183. We're referring to that as Lake Creek, and down in the Georgian Acres area. If you're familiar, that area is often referred to as a transit desert. It's along the I-35 frontage. It's very hard to serve. So we're excited about that. The final thing we're excited about here is the Route 211, a route that would connect Norwood Transit Center to Tech Ridge via DeSalle. And that's also a corridor that's proposed for a rapid line in Project Connect. So again, building towards rapid lines. The next one is UT Shuttle. I'm going to get to I'm just going to, in trying to get through all my slides. Here, we're going to look to only keep 2 UT shuttles, the 640 and the 642. Everything else would transition to local services, with those local routes being the 8 and the 370. We know from talking to the students, they really prefer regular service that operates on a consistent basis, that isn't tied to UT's schedule. That doesn't operate some days just because UT isn't in session. Big add is Saturday service. These would be frequent routes also due to the loads that we'd have coming to UT. Next slide. Next slide is rail. And there is some animation on this. So if you just want to click 3 times, I think, and bring up all the animation. So again, we would prepare for Broadmoor Station opening. We'd also have other investments and improvements occurring along the Red Line, including Plaza Saltillo double tracking and the ongoing efforts of the Red Line Trail and improvements to our positive train control technology to enhance reliability and safety of service. Our recommendations recognize that this is not a static railroad and that there's been a significant amount of implemented recently and in the next few years. So we really are trying to improve that service. We would look to hopefully operate service to 9 p.m. on weekdays, knowing that people want to stay downtown longer than 7 o'clock and then start up as early as 8 a.m. on Saturday. In the 5+ year outlook, we take those investments we've made and we look to increase our span and we look to increase our frequency, not span, our frequency to every 30 minutes. We also know that we'll have to deal with some I-35 construction in this time frame as we'll have to bridge over I-35. And then finally, in the 10+ year outlook, we look to make even additional investments, potentially including some infill stations. We'll have more details about that in our draft report when it comes out. We look to introduce Sunday service on the Red Line. We do need to acknowledge that freight is an important part of our rail line. And then finally, again, another Project Connect project. We'd look to hopefully start up Green Line service. So this is my last slide. There's a lot of Project Connect elements that I didn't list. Those are in the 10+ year vision list. The express services, the rapid lines are all there. Green Line for the rail. We also have a various number of transit plan recommendations. I know you can't read this. It's impossible to get a great graphic of this, but it is on our website. And again, Giannis, if you click on the next one, our website is capmetro.org/transit plan 2035. I left you all 4 minutes for questions, and I apologize.
No, I'm very appreciative. So I think if we have some quick questions, clarifications, I think what we'll look to do, and the officers will get together and discuss agenda, but perhaps we'll look to have a more robust Q&A at the next meeting. And maybe there's even the opportunity for bigger visuals that help explicate some of the things that you guided us through today for something like that. I don't know, but maybe just to do more questions and have an opportunity to follow up with the team again next month. And we can figure out how to scope that in our agenda planning meeting perhaps. But if someone does have a question for the team, I would like to offer a little opportunity for that, but moving towards wrapping our agenda quickly here, hopefully. And with appreciation for y'all, and sorry that you were compressed. We really appreciate you being here. Yes.
And I would like to add, can y'all hear me? Is that working? Okay, thanks. So our comment period right now is open through August 31st. And so if we plan for the next meeting, just kind of keeping that in mind, we have also a lot of opportunities to meet with the team. And so if you have questions, I really encourage as many questions as y'all would like.
I understand. Okay. As long as we have quorum, I'm okay staying. I just, I'm used to UTC goes longer, but we're not as used to longer meetings in this body. So I'm happy to call on folks for questions. So. I think your mic's off.
You have a question about what's going to happen in the Southeast, you can go look at the video.
Video on the website. Yeah, absolutely. And we are posted for discussion, which allows us to give you robust feedback, but we're not posted for action. So we can't pass a recommendation by the deadline necessarily. Okay. I do see two questions. One from, I'll go with Mr. Gorse.
Okay. Just to make sure I understand correctly, am I correct in thinking that these changes are to be phased in, like they're not going to happen all at once? It sounds like some of them are next year and some of them are further down the road, so they'll kind of come in a few at a time as funding is available.
Yeah, that is correct. They will be phased in. Thanks for that reminder. I forgot to mention that we do not anticipate this being another CAP remap where we change 50% of our routes overnight. We do expect it to be much more going through our regular service plan process. Now, that said, if approved, the number of changes that are concurrent with 800 and 837, the park and rides opening, is a significant number of changes, and it will be felt by our community, by almost our entire community.
Definitely. Thank you. Mr. Gorse, did you finish your questions? It looks like maybe.
Yeah, I'm finished. Thanks.
Okay, great. Chair Azar?
Thank you. I have a bunch of questions. I'll keep this quick, which is, I don't think I saw the static map on the website. Is it available? Kind of, you had snippets of it in your presentation.
Can you hear me? So we do have some interactive maps on our website. And we also have a remix map that you can kind of click around and click on each route and zoom in and out. Does that suffice for what you're looking for?
I'll be honest, I had gone through it and maybe it's just me. I was really struggling with that because I keep clicking on things. So I was just, and I know it's really complicated to put it all in one map, but that might just be helpful to track along because I was just personally struggling.
Yes, and it's very difficult to see all the lines because they're on top of each other. We do have a big map that we will have at our public meeting. We have it printed very large, so that may be a good opportunity to come look at that. But also when we send the slide deck, we kind of offset the lines in the slide deck, so it might be good to look at that PowerPoint. That would be helpful.
Thank you.
Great. Other questions?
I will add to that comment we didn't bring one today, but we have a flip book that basically shows everything that's on the website so that you can also flip through each route and have that time to look at it just in case, because yes, the digital can, be hard to navigate. So we have that other option as well. And if we're happy to also share that.
I did just want to comment myself on the UT shuttle piece. I think that people who are UT alums, even for me, I've had an association, I work for the university, but from when I was a student, when I first moved to Austin in 2005, and to now, I think that the use of the shuttles and the way students navigate has so radically transformed. It's really hard to understand if you were at UT, a while ago, how that has changed. And that really does align with what I talk to students every day with what students are saying about being confused about why the shuttles don't run on the weekend and why they aren't a normal service. It's just a different, the way that where students live and how they navigate is very different. So I think that some of those options, I would love to dig in even more on those, but, because I care about the students a lot, but I think that responding to their needs is really, really important because I say this a lot, but getting people riding when they're in college, they're going to be willing to ride transit wherever they go if they learn how to navigate that as college students. So I think that that's really important, responding to their needs. And I think that the shuttles, it's hard because I think a lot of people have a lot of really big feelings about the shuttles and the history of the shuttles with Cap Metro. It's important historical stuff within Austin, but I think that the need has really evolved. So I think that being flexible on that, it seems really exciting just from the brief piece that we saw. So anyone else? All right. Well, we thank you so much. And we're sorry that we were compressed today. I'm going to encourage everyone, we'll try to recirculate again to the committee, the online tools and comment and videos so that everyone can dig in and explore on that and submit any comments you have on your own by the comment period. And then maybe figure out an appropriate way to scope and follow up again at the next meeting to make sure that we really dug in to the extent that the committee wants. Okay. Okay. We really appreciate you. Thank you. That takes us to the staff updates. I think we'll try to move through this pretty rapidly if possible. This is item 7. So we'll do 7A, which is the Austin Transit Partnership staff update.
Yeah, no update from ATP.
That is easy. Thank you. 7B, which is the staff update from Cap Metro. Okay, no, none from Cap Metro. Thank you. And 7C, which is City of Austin. Okay. All right. All right. So no staff updates. That brings us to item 8, which is updates from any working groups. Does any of the committee members have something to share about their working group? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to future agenda items. I do want to hold space here if there's something that we're hoping to bring back. So we've talked about perhaps Transit Plan 2035 coming back. I think we'll figure out how to scope that in a way that's productive for us, perhaps. What else do we have upcoming from that commissioners are looking to have on the agenda? Anything particular? Okay, I don't hear anything. So the officers will think through that for our next agenda, which does take us to the end of our agenda items. So that brings us to our adjournment. So seeing no objection, I'll adjourn this meeting at 7:34 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Thanks, everyone.